So the topic for today's discussion is universal basic income. What is universal basic income? So basically, the universal basic income means a, an unconditional periodic cash transfer, and that transfer of cash is provided to all the citizens. And the goal is basically to tackle the issues of inequality, poverty, and unemployment. So we can say that universal basic income is an unconditional universal periodic cash transfer to all citizens to tackle inequality, unemployment, and poverty. Now, what are the pros of this universal basic income? So, first of all, if there will be universal basic income, it will reduce poverty. We have almost around 11% in MDPI, so that will be reduced. Then, second pros of this can be we will have uh, lowering of the income inequality gap. So, as I mentioned in the previous video, that 1% of individuals in India accounts for 22% of income. So, the universal basic income will reduce this inequality. Then, at third, a psychological empowerment will be done. People will be more confident when they'll have some basic income as a backup. They can be more innovative. Then, third is we can tackle the issues of exclusion errors through the universal basic income. Then, apart from it, people will get motivated and there will be rise of startups if we'll provide universal basic income. The next one is economic stimulation. This thing we have observed in the economy of USA. So what happened is USA next is what is the cons. So basically there are some cons of universal basic income. So the very first is it will be used as a tool of political popularization, and this will have burden on the public exchequer or the state exchequer, the money of the people, rather than getting used for empowerment and development, will be used to provide universal basic income to get votes. Then next is it will also impact our financial budget. So as per one of the surveys, to provide rupees 1000 to an individual, it will cost around 5% of our GDP. Then it can also lead to the inflation, demand pull inflation. Then the money which we will be providing through the universal basic income, there is a high probability that it will be used for the materialistic needs instead of spending on education or health. And at last it will also impact the labor availability. So when there will be a universal basic income and an option is available to the labor that whether he works or not he'll get some amount of money, then this will obviously impact the availability of the labor. Then what can be the solution? Achha, one more con of UPI is that capital expenditure would decrease, as we will be using around 5% part of our GDP to give this universal basic income. Our expenditure is more of the revenue expenditure. It is not a capital expenditure which would in future fetch us some fruits and benefits. So this is also one of the demerits. So now what could be the possible solutions? So one of the possible solutions is conditional basic income. So the 2016-17 economic survey of India, it suggested that we should give quasi universal uh, basic income, and that too only to the bottom 75%, and around 7,000 per month can be given. Another solution can be to avoid the misuse of the funds, we can transfer this universal basic income to the females, as considering them the head of the family, we can transfer the amount to the females. It will also lead to women empowerment, and it has high chances that it will not allow the money to be diverted for other uses instead of being used for the development and betterment of individual. Then third solution can be consolidations of scheme. Like we can provide we can provide things, like we can provide LPG and various other things instead of providing monetary benefits. So for example, if there is a scheme to which provides monetary support for a particular cause, so instead of providing the monetary support, we can directly provide them the material which is required. For example, us if a farm subsidy of rupees 100 is given to a farmer, instead of giving them the subsidy, we can just directly give them the fertilizer for which the subsidy is being provided, that ways. So these are some of the probable solutions, the pros and cons of the UBI. Now, one of our former chief economic advisor, Arvind Subramaniam, you can quote him in your answers, this in maybe an introduction or maybe in conclusion, and it might fetch you good marks. So what does he says? He says that universal basic income has a potential that can be a substitute for a plethora of inefficient welfare schemes. So that's all for